Dracula Introduction. There, on a bed of earth, was Count Dracula. At first Jonathan thought he was dead. His eyes were open, and his face was pale. No breath came from his mouth or nose, and there was no sign of a heart in his chest. But there was something about his eyes that frightened Jonathan. They did not have the glassy look of death. They looked up into the air above him, but they were filled with a terrible hate. Count Dracula lives in a large castle in Transylvania, but he wants to buy a house in England. A London law company sends Jonathan Harker to Castle Dracula to help the Count with his business. Dracula is friendly and polite to his guest, but something is wrong. Why are the doors to the rooms in the castle all locked? Why aren't there any mirrors? Why does the Count only wake up at night, and why does he seem so strangely interested in pictures of Jonathan's girlfriend, Mina? When Jonathan discovers a terrible secret about Count Dracula, he wants to escape. But how? He is a prisoner in the castle. Will he ever see England and Mina again? When does a man stop being a man? When does he start to become something different? Towards the end of the 1800s, many writers became interested in questions like these. Two of the most successful stories on this subject were Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1886, and Oscar Wilde's picture of Dorian Gray, 1891. Then, in June 1897, came Bram Stoker's Dracula. Stoker's mother, writing to him in London from Ireland, said, "No book since Mrs. Shelley's Frankenstein has been better or more frightening than yours. Dracula will make you a lot of money, and you will be famous." Dracula became a bestseller and Stoker made some money. But he did not become famous until after his death. Dracula is now one of the most famous names in fiction. You can find the book in more than 40 languages, and there have been more films about Count Dracula than about any other fictional person except Sherlock Holmes. Visitors to Romania are now shown Dracula's castle, but Bram Stoker never visited the country. Dracula was not the first story about vampires. Byron wrote about them, The Giaour 1813, and John Polidori wrote The Vampire in 1818, 1 year before Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. Heinrich Marschner's Der Vampir was popular in Germany a long time before Stoker wrote Dracula. Vampire stories are very old. People in Slavonic countries have believed for hundreds of years that vampires exist. In these stories, bad people became vampires after they died. They returned as large bats and drank the blood of sleeping people. These people then became vampires, too. If vampires were able to find blood, they never died. People believed that they could protect themselves from vampires with plants, like garlic, and with fire. When religion came to the Slavs, stories about vampires did not stop. But people believed that some religious things, like holy bread and the cross, could also protect them from vampires. There was only one way to kill a vampire and to save the soul of the dead person. That, they believed, was with a thick, sharp piece of wood through the heart. Abraham Stoker was born in Dublin, Ireland, in 1847. He was an excellent student at university, Trinity College, and he was also a very good runner and footballer. While he was a student, Stoker went to a Dublin theatre and saw the great English actor, Henry Irving. Stoker fell in love with the theatre, and he never forgot Henry Irving. After university, he worked in Irish government offices. It was a boring life for him, but he made it more interesting. He gave talks at the university about English writers and votes for women. He also wrote about the theatre for Dublin newspapers, and his first story, The Chain of Destiny, was printed in the Shamrock magazine in 1875. In 1878 he got married, left his job in Ireland and moved to London. There, he found work with the actor that he first saw in Dublin 11 years before. He became the personal secretary to Sir Henry Irving. Irving was the most famous actor and producer in the English theatre at that time. His favourite plays were by Shakespeare, but he also enjoyed producing and acting in a different kind of play. These stories were more exciting and frightening than real life, and perhaps Stoker first became interested in vampires from these plays. Perhaps, too, Stoker was thinking of Henry Irving when he wrote about Count Dracula. Many people believe that Stoker traveled around Britain and to the USA many times with Irving and his theatre company. During this time, he started writing seriously. His first book, in 1879, was about the law courts in Ireland. After that, he wrote 15 fictional books. A book of children's stories, Under the Sunset, 1881, was his first. Dracula, 1897, is his most famous. In 1905 Henry Irving died and Stoker wrote 2 books about him, Personal Reminiscences of Henry Irving, the following year. Bram Stoker died in London in 1912.